Africa's portrayal on the global stage has long been dominated by a narrative that suggests it is a continent in perpetual crisis, in desperate need of saving by more developed nations, particularly those in the West. This perspective has been carefully constructed and reinforced over decades, leading to a widespread belief that Africa cannot stand on its own. The imagery often used in Western media and reports, starving children, war-torn landscapes, and destitute communities, serves to cement the idea that Africa is a continent that needs external intervention to survive and thrive. This narrative, while containing elements of truth, is dangerously oversimplified and serves to benefit those who propagate it. Yes, Africa faces significant challenges, including poverty, hunger, and insecurity. However, these issues are often presented in a way that diminishes the continent's capabilities and potential, painting it as a region that is inherently unable to manage its own affairs without external help. This portrayal conveniently ignores the rich history, cultural diversity, and the myriad of successful initiatives driven by Africans themselves to improve their own circumstances. Western nations and institutions have long positioned themselves as the benevolent forces ready to rescue Africa from its woes. Through various forums, summits, and aid packages, they claim to offer solutions to the continent's problems. However, despite the numerous high-profile visits by Western leaders and officials, and the billions of dollars supposedly earmarked for aid, the situation in many African countries remains largely unchanged. This begs the question, what is the true purpose of these visits and the aid that comes with them? To understand the complexity of the issue, one must look beyond the surface. The recent visit of the United Nations Deputy Secretary-General to Burkina Faso, for example, was presented as part of a broader strategy to support sustainable development and address various crises in the region. But if we delve deeper, we see that this visit, like many others before it, is unlikely to bring about any significant change. The pattern is clear. Western institutions visit African nations, make grand promises, and then leave without delivering any substantial results. These actions are often more about maintaining Western influence and control, rather than genuinely aiding Africa's development. It is crucial to recognize that the aid provided by Western countries and institutions is not always the benevolent gesture it is made out to be. While it may appear generous on the surface, the reality is often far more complicated. Aid can serve as a tool for maintaining influence over African governments, ensuring that they remain dependent on Western support. This dependency is not just financial but also political, as many aid packages come with strings attached that benefit the donor countries more than the recipients. The continuous influx of aid has had several detrimental effects on Africa. It has fostered a culture of dependency, where African governments rely more on foreign assistance than on developing their own economies. This reliance on aid stifles innovation and entrepreneurship, as there is little incentive to build robust, self-sustaining systems when external funds are always available. Moreover, the aid system has been plagued by corruption, with large portions of these funds ending up in the pockets of politicians and officials, rather than reaching the people who need it most. Corruption is not the only issue. The conditions attached to aid often require African countries to open up their markets to foreign multinational corporations, allowing these companies to extract resources and profits with little benefit to the local economy. This exploitation has resulted in a situation where, despite the influx of billions of dollars in aid, Africa remains impoverished and underdeveloped. The aid system, rather than lifting Africa out of poverty, has entrenched it further. One of the most concerning aspects of this dynamic is the extent to which Africa's wealth is siphoned off by foreign entities. Illicit financial flows, money illegally earned, transferred, or utilized, drain more resources from the continent than it receives in aid. According to some estimates, Africa loses over $85 billion each year to such outflows. This money, often moved through trade mispricing, tax evasion, and other illicit means by multinational corporations, dwarfs the amount of aid flowing into the continent. The irony is that while Africa is portrayed as a charity case, it is in fact subsidizing the wealth of the developed world through these financial losses. The aid narrative also obscures the fact that Africa has long been a net creditor to the rest of the world. Despite receiving aid, the continent loses far more in resources and financial outflows than it gains. This one-sided relationship has contributed to the underdevelopment of Africa, as its resources are extracted and used to build wealth in other parts of the world, particularly in the West. Furthermore, the aid system has inadvertently encouraged corruption and mismanagement within African governments. The availability of large sums of money with little oversight has led to the rise of a political class more interested in securing their share of the aid pie than in genuinely improving the lives of their citizens. This has resulted in the entrenchment of poor governance and the perpetuation of poverty and inequality. Another aspect of aid that is rarely discussed is its impact on local economies. In many cases, aid disrupts local markets by flooding them with free or heavily subsidized goods. For instance, when food aid is distributed in a region, it often undercuts local farmers who cannot compete with the low prices of donated goods. This can destroy livelihoods and create a cycle of dependency, where communities rely on external aid rather than on their own agricultural production. Moreover, the focus on aid often diverts attention from the real solutions to Africa's challenges. Rather than building robust institutions, investing in infrastructure, or fostering regional trade, many governments focus on securing more aid. This short-term approach does little to address the underlying issues and instead perpetuates the problems. Africa's true potential lies not in its dependency on aid, but in its ability to harness its own resources and talents. The continent is rich in natural resources, has a young and dynamic population, and possesses a vibrant cultural heritage. These assets, if properly managed, can drive sustainable development and economic growth. However, this requires a shift away from the aid model to one that emphasizes self-reliance, good governance, and regional cooperation. Imagine an Africa that no longer relies on foreign aid. Without this external crutch, African nations would be compelled to innovate and find their own solutions to the challenges they face. They would develop industries, invest in education and infrastructure, and build economies that are resilient and sustainable. This shift would not only benefit Africa, but also the global economy, as a prosperous and stable Africa would be a valuable partner in trade and investment. African leaders have begun to recognize the limitations of aid and the importance of self-reliance. There is a growing movement across the continent to reject the aid model and focus instead on building strong, independent economies. This includes initiatives to improve infrastructure, foster entrepreneurship, and promote intra-African trade. The African Continental Free Trade Area, AfCFTA, which aims to create a single market for goods and services across the continent, is a significant step in this direction. By reducing trade barriers and encouraging investment, AfCFTA has the potential to unlock Africa's economic potential and reduce its dependence on external aid. Another critical aspect of this shift is the need for good governance. For Africa to truly break free from the aid trap, it must address the issue of corruption and ensure that resources are used effectively and transparently. This requires strong institutions, the rule of law, and accountable leadership. African countries that have made progress in these areas, such as Rwanda and Botswana, provide models for others to follow. It is also essential for Africa to develop its human capital. Education and skills development are key to building a workforce that can drive innovation and economic growth. By investing in education, particularly in science and technology, Africa can create a new generation of leaders and entrepreneurs who can transform the continent. The international community also has a role to play in supporting Africa's development, but this support must be based on partnership rather than dependency. Instead of aid, the focus should be on trade, investment, and technology transfer. Developed countries should open their markets to African goods, support infrastructure development, and invest in education and skills training. By working together as equals, Africa and the rest of the world can build a more prosperous and equitable global economy. As we reflect on these ideas, it's crucial to stay engaged and informed. If you find this discussion valuable, please take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe. Your engagement helps us continue to explore important topics like this one, and we appreciate your support. In conclusion, the time has come for Africa to chart its own course, free from the constraints of the aid model that has done more harm than good. By focusing on self-reliance, good governance, and regional cooperation, Africa can unlock its vast potential and build a future where it is no longer seen as a continent in need of saving, but as a powerful and dynamic player on the global stage. The narrative of Africa as a helpless continent must be replaced with one that recognizes its strength, resilience, and potential. Africa's future is bright, and with the right strategies in place, it can lead the way in creating a more just and prosperous world. What do you think? Is it time for Africa to say no to foreign aid and embrace a path of self-reliance? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to stay updated on more content like this. Your support makes a difference.